Thanks very much for inviting me. I just want to make a quick apology first, because after I speak, I do have to go. I've got to go and do a media interview. First of all, I just want to say thanks for inviting me. Thanks, Ian, for your kind words. I don't really want to talk much about Hope Not Hate. If you want to find out more about us, a week next Monday, so the 21st of October, 10 o'clock, Channel 4, there's an hour and a half feature film about us, following us for the last 2 years, and it includes the most unbelievable undercover investigation that we've done. So I think they're going to start promoting it next week. We've had to keep it under wraps because of the undercover operation, but it goes right through to the riots of this summer. So that's really, I want to talk about the last few months. I want to talk about the 3 R's. So in July, we had the general election, and others have said Reform, a far-right party, got 4.1 million votes. 14% of the electorate who voted, while they only got 5 MPs. But suddenly we're now in a situation where Britain, like most other countries in Europe, have a sizable far-right party. A few weeks later, there was a demonstration in London organised by Tommy Robinson. Between 30 and 40,000 people packed into Trafalgar Square. And then 2 days later, after the horrific murder of 3 kids in Southport, we had the riots. The 3 R's, 3 totally separate events, but all interconnected. At the Tommy Robinson demo in central London, the biggest cheer on that day was when he asked people who had voted for Nigel Farage's and the Reform Party. On the riots, virtually every single protest around the country, you heard the chant of "Oh, Tommy, Tommy." It was the most popular chant at all these demos. And underpinning it all was Reform politicians on our TV, on social media, spreading disinformation, whipping up hatred, spreading lies, demonizing people. So while they're all totally separate incidents, we are seeing in Britain the rise of the far right in a way that we probably haven't seen since the 1970s. And in many cases, you could probably ask, what we are facing now could be worse than the 1970s. And I think I was really struck by what Jed said. And I just want to say what a great organisation Show Racing and the Red Card is. You know, I've grown up, I've been involved for 35 years. And actually my story as a kid growing up in West London in Hounslow, and my mum coming from Mauritius, arriving in Britain in 1961, and kind of feeling the fear. As a kid, I remember the National Front Party political broadcast in 1979, when they said that they would send home people who weren't born in Britain for 6 months. That haunted me. That haunted me for years. I had no concept that they were an organisation that got 1% of the vote, but it haunted me, and it probably explains why I do this now. But I've grown up with Show Racing and Red Card, and I think they're a fantastic organisation. But one of the points that Jed made and others have made, when we look at the threats we're facing now, it's not just about immigration. Now, I mean, that's bad enough. But what we're facing is a challenge to Britain's multicultural society. And if you look at the Tommy Robinsons, if you look at Nigel Farage, if you look at how Reform responded to the disturbances in Leeds and Hare Hills, we had sitting MPs tweeting out, "Import third world people, get third world problems." I mean, this is the stuff that the BNP would have been scared to say in the early 2000s. I mean, that's where the politics have shifted. We have GB News, we have all these podcasts, we've got Andrew Tate. On the day of the Tommy Robinson demonstration in central London on the 27th of July, his tweets on that one day were seen 58 million times. I mean, the far right is growing, And the far right is a major threat. And what's uniting them all isn't just stop the boats. It isn't just we need to halt immigration. It is questioning the very basics of a multicultural society. Because when you do that, and this is what the far right, ultimately, this is what they're about. They use immigration, oh, we're a bit concerned about this or that. But fundamentally, they don't want non-white people here. And to do that, Britain, to be honest, compared to most other countries in Europe, I think compared to any country in Europe, has probably been warts and all the problems that Ian suffered and everybody else has suffered. There have been many success stories here, but that is being challenged because really, for the world that they want to create, they have to pick apart multiculturalism, and that's what they're starting to do. So what I want to do is just to finish up. I spent the last week in the US, the last 10 days, and I just want to kind of raise a warning from America. I'm here at a trade union conference. I was out with the steel workers. I was out with the painters and allied trades. I was out campaigning with the AFL-CIO. I've been going to America for elections since 2008. It's a very different world to what it was then. 2008 was a year of hope and change, Barack Obama. There was a mood of optimism. People came out in their hundreds. Trade union members came out in their hundreds. That isn't the case now. On the weekend, last weekend, the firefighters, the Union of Firefighters in the US, felt that they couldn't nominate a candidate for the president because actually their internal polling showed that the majority of their members were supporting Donald Trump. A few weeks ago, the Teamsters, one of the biggest and strongest trade unions in America, couldn't endorse any candidate because their private polling showed that 60% of their members were going to vote for Donald Trump. And it's not just about their members voting for Donald Trump, but what does that mean for trade unionism? It means a lack of unity. It means that racism is embedded in the union and in the workplace. It means that they're weaker. They can't unite. And I think talking to many of the, I met this in Pennsylvania. I met steelworkers. It was a local 286. The vice president, black man, 71 years old, been a Democrat all his life. Now he was voting for Trump, vice president of the union branch. I asked him why, and he was very friendly to us. He said, well, it was a jab. He's gone down the conspiracy route since COVID. But talking to a lot of the union people over there, they were saying they didn't take up the challenge fast enough. They ignored the challenge. They felt it wasn't their issue. They were trade unionists. They supported campaigns. And I think my warning to the trade union movement and my appeal is that we aren't at that stage yet. But unions should not only be at the front line of the fight against fascism, but part of that is about winning and educating our own members. And we've got to have the battle. We've got to be willing to have the battle. In 2008, I went out in, again, Pennsylvania with the steelworkers, and they had this bus literally going from town hall to town hall in rural Pennsylvania, in the old steel towns, where you had the president of the union literally arguing it out with town hall meetings with their members and families about why they should vote for a black man. This time with the Painters and Allied Union, great union, small but great union. Their union president was taking this little minibus literally around the country to workplaces to argue it out. Most unions don't do that in the US, and probably most unions don't do that here. But we can't be complacent and think that because we're trade unions, we're okay, because we're not. And we need trade unions. We need them to be at the backbone of the fight against fascism, the fight against the far right. So what I'd like to commend Napo for organising this event and for putting the kind of fight against racism and the far right on the agenda. because it's a long fight, but it's a fight that we have to have. So all power to you for doing that.